The idea that probiotics can undo the damage of a high-fat diet is both alluring and, to some extent, scientifically grounded, though perhaps not in the magical way some yogurt commercials would have you believe. The gut microbiome is one of the first casualties of high-fat dietary patterns, particularly those rich in saturated fat and ultra-processed foods. These diets shift the microbial balance toward pro-inflammatory, endotoxin-producing bacteria and reduce populations of beneficial species that normally support gut barrier function, produce short-chain fatty acids, SCFAs, and modulate immune tolerance. Probiotics, in theory, offer a tactical counterstrike, reintroducing helpful microbes that can restore microbial diversity, reduce gut inflammation, and potentially resuscitate suppressed immune pathways like IL-22 signaling. But theory isn't evidence, and the truth lies in the nuance. Not all probiotics are created equal, and their ability to counteract dietary damage depends heavily on strain, dose, timing, host biology, and yes, the continued presence or absence of said damaging diet. Swallowing a few capsules of Lactobacillus rhamnosus while continuing to mainline bacon cheeseburgers is like putting a Band-Aid on a leaking dam. The ecosystem you're trying to improve is still under siege. That said, several studies, mostly in animal models and some in humans, do suggest that certain probiotic strains can help mitigate gut inflammation triggered by high-fat diets. In mice-fed high-fat diets, supplementation with Lactobacillus plantarum, Bifidobacterium longum, or Akkermansia mucinifera has been shown to improve intestinal barrier integrity, reduce circulating levels of lipopolysaccharides, LPS, and increase the expression of tight junction proteins like agglutinin and claudin. These changes are meaningful. They suggest the barrier is being restored and systemic inflammation is being dialed down. As for IL-22 specifically, the evidence is more limited but still intriguing. Some strains of probiotics, particularly Lactobacillus reuteri and Bifidobacterium breve, have been reported to increase IL-22 expression in the gut. These strains may do so indirectly by modulating the activity of innate lymphoid cells, ILC3S, which are the primary producers of IL-22 in the intestinal mucosa. For example, L. reuteri has been shown to interact with epithelial toll-like receptors, TLRs, and dendritic cells in a way that promotes IL-23 production, which in turn activates IL-22, secreting ILC3S. In mouse models, this pathway results in enhanced mucosal defense, increased antimicrobial peptide production, and reduced gut permeability, even when the diet remains relatively high in fat. Another possible mechanism is through SCFA production, especially butyrate and acetate. While most traditional probiotics are not great SCFA producers themselves, they may help foster an environment in which native SCFA-producing bacteria thrive. SCFAs have been shown to reinforce gut barrier function and, in some contexts, modulate IL-22 signaling indirectly through epigenetic changes and immune cell recruitment. This suggests a kind of cooperative microbiome diplomacy. Probiotics show up, make the neighborhood safer, and convince the native immune cells to start acting less like riot police and more like urban planners. However, we shouldn't oversell it. Many human trials of probiotics are small, poorly standardized, and subject to publication bias. Effects are often modest and strain-specific. And even when results are positive, say, improved gut permeability or lower inflammatory markers, the underlying dietary pattern still plays a dominant role. A probiotic that helps restore IL-22 in a mouse on a high-fat diet may not overcome the same barrier damage in a human eating 60% of their calories from processed fat and fiberless starch. There's also the issue of colonization. Most probiotics don't permanently take up residence in the gut. They're more like helpful tourists, bringing value while they're around, but quickly departing when the conditions become inhospitable. If the gut remains an inflammation-prone wasteland thanks to continued high-fat intake and minimal fiber, those tourists will be gone faster than you can say gut dysbiosis. Lasting change requires not just microbial additions, but environmental shifts that favor the growth of beneficial strains already hiding in the microbial shadows. In short, probiotics can be part of the recovery plan, but they're not the whole plan. When combined with dietary improvements, like increased fiber, polyphenol, prebiotics, and reduced saturated fat, certain probiotic strains do seem capable of reinforcing gut barrier function, lowering inflammation, and potentially rescuing suppressed IL-22 signaling. but they are no match for an ongoing barrage of dietary insults. Expecting them to be is a bit like expecting a probiotic to politely ask a cytokine storm to take a nap. If you want your gut to make peace with your immune system, you can't just send in the probiotics, you have to stop feeding the war.